Good morning, everyone. Wanted to give some love to the ladies' side of the NCAA bracket this morning. Obviously, women's basketball has kind of exploded this year, so wanted to make sure we were giving them their fair due while the tournament is here in high gear. So what we're going to do is we're going to walk you a little bit through the bracket. We're going to talk about the teams that are left, not necessarily all of the games. I didn't watch all of the games, but I want to kind of talk about the teams that are left, kind of how they got here, and then we'll talk a little bit about kind of the matchups and what we're looking at for this weekend. So that's kind of what we're looking at on the agenda for this morning. So we are going to start actually with the number one overall seed, South Carolina. They are the number one overall seed in the entire bracket. To get to the Sweet 16, they beat Presbyterian, probably walked right by those guys, and then North Carolina as well. The undefeated season, they're pretty much looking to be steamrolling. I just looked at the odds this morning before we jumped on. They are minus money to win the national championship, so they are the odds-on betting favorite. They are going to play North Carolina, or I'm sorry, they already beat North Carolina. They are going to play number 4 seeded Indiana tomorrow. They beat Fairchild, Oklahoma to get here. And I believe that game is like 2:00 local time. So early afternoon for that game. But South Carolina, coached by Dawn Staley, women's basketball legend. So they are the odds-on betting favorite. We'll see how well that they play out. My anticipation, at least for my bracket, I have them going all the way and winning the title this year. On the other half of that portion of the bracket, Notre Dame is the 2 seed. They beat Kent State and Ole Miss to get here. They're, again, another very good team. I don't know a ton about them. I haven't watched a ton of them. I'm going to put them together this weekend. I'm going to try and make sure that I've checked off some of these other teams to watch those in there. But that's who they beat, Kent State and Ole Miss to get here. They will play number 3, Oregon State, who has beat Washington and Nebraska to get there as well. So 2-3 matchups usually are very competitive, so expecting to see a lot of kind of action in there. All right, next up is number 1 Iowa, especially here locally in the Midwest and here in the Quad Cities. A lot of interest and a lot of interest around the Lady Hawkeyes playing. We've just kind of seen them play very well. They made it all the way to the title game last year. Obviously, Caitlin Clark is the big name there on the roster. They have a couple of other ones that are a couple of other players that are quite good as well. They beat Holy Cross in West Virginia, but frankly, they struggled in both. Now, in the first game, they just kind of wrote it off as, they've been off for 2 weeks. And West Virginia had a really good defense. I don't know. They've really kind of struggled this year, especially when Clark hasn't been kind of at the top of her game. They're still a very good team. I still have them going to the title game and losing to South Carolina, but just the way that they've kind of struggled here in the last couple of games leaves me to wonder maybe if they aren't firing on all cylinders right now. But they're still an elite team, and as long as you've got Caitlin Clark, you've got a puncher's chance to advance. They are going to play number 5 Colorado. They beat Drake and Kansas State to get here to play the Lady Hawkeyes. Bottom side of that bracket, first up will be number 2 UCLA. They struggled in this last game to beat Creighton to get here. They would have actually trailed most of that game. They didn't finally win it until kind of the last few minutes of the game where they were where they beat them by 4. They play number 3 LSU, number 3 seed LSU. They are the defending national champs. Obviously, they're a very good team. Angel Reese is obviously their star player. If you haven't heard of her, you've been living under a rock, especially after last season. But she is excellent. She is going to be another WNBA pick that we will see here. They are the defending champs. They do have a little bit of distraction around them. If you paid attention to anything over the last weekend, Kim Mulkey, their coach, she had said that the Washington Post was going to put out a hit piece on her and that she was going to sue them. And it was kind of a big thing for about 12 hours and then it kind of died off. So I don't know whether that's really kind of came to fruition or not. But this team seems to have a lot of drama around it this year. for whatever reason. Reese missed a few games that nobody really kind of talked about. One of their other star players, there's a big kind of pushing match or fight in and I believe it was the SEC tournament. One of the players' brothers came out of the stands. So they just kind of had a lot of drama kind of floating around in them this year, and you're kind of just waiting for them to kind of either implode or explode with that. I think that's going to be a very good game, that 2-3 matchup. I've got UCLA kind of advancing in that game, but you can't count out the defending champs. So we'll see kind of what that game brings us. Moving on down to another number one seed, that is the University of Texas. They beat Drexel and Alabama to get here to the Sweet 16. They're going to be playing the number 4 seeded Gonzaga. They beat UC Irvine and Utah to get here. On the bottom side of that bracket will be number 2 Stanford. They are a very good team as well. They beat Norfolk State and Iowa State. They beat them in overtime, so they had a bit of a fight to even get here. And they are led by Cameron Brink. She is expected to be a high WNBA pick, maybe even number 2 behind Caitlin Clark. So they are a very good team led by one of the best players in the country. They are going to play number 3 NC State. Who have beat Green Bay and Tennessee to get here. What I've seen in kind of these women's matchups is the first round games all seem to be kind of these smaller schools where they don't have like a lot of juice, and then they play kind of a one of the ones from one of the Power 5 schools in there. The women's field this year seems to be very kind of chalk. There isn't a lot of kind of upsets, not like on the men's side. Not a lot of 15-2 upsets. It was very chalky this year. All right, from there, we're going to jump down to the last portion of the bracket. Another number 1 seed, so all 4 number 1 seeds have survived for this long. Number 1, USC. They are led by Juju Watkins, freshman sensation there. She is supposedly one of the best players in the country. Well, she's not supposedly. She is one of the best players in the country and has a chance at breaking Caitlin Clark's scoring record. She is that kind of prolific scorer. Big Ten fans are going to get a chance to see her up close when USC comes to the Big Ten next year. But this is kind of your chance to see that preview. But she can put her team on her back and light it up. So much like Iowa with Caitlin Clark, doesn't matter how well or how poorly the team plays, as long as Juju's on it, you've always got that puncher's chance. They beat Texas A&M Corpus Christi to get here, along with Kansas. They're going to play number 5 seeded Baylor, who beat Vanderbilt and Virginia Tech. And then in our last bracket matchup, we have number 3 UConn. They are led by Paige Beckers and Aaliyah Edwards. Both are early WNBA selections. I think we'll see both of those ladies go top 5, top 10 in there as well. Beckers missed last year with a torn ACL. This is her first time back playing. She played 2 years ago, then was off a year for the torn ACL, and now she's back playing for UConn. These guys are actually kind of my sleeper pick to win the whole thing. I've seen a couple of games of theirs now. They are very, very good, top to bottom. Their point guard, they've got like a 5th-year senior point guard. Beckers and Edwards are both, like I said, pro-level players. I can imagine that this team, it would not surprise me at all to see them in the Final Four. Would not surprise me at all to see them give whoever's going to be that they're going to match up in that Final Four, give them the fight of their lives. And UConn is obviously led by the legendary Gino Auriemma. So they're a very well-coached team. I think that if it's not South Carolina or Iowa, I could see UConn easily winning this tournament. They beat Jackson State and Syracuse to get to this point. They are playing probably the what you would call the underdog in all this, the lowest seeded team still left, Duke. They beat Richmond and then upset number 2 Ohio State in the last round to get here. So they're playing a little bit with some house money at this point. Now, Duke is Duke, and obviously on the men's side, Duke is a very good team. I'm not quite as sure about the women's side of the house, but Obviously, they've gotten this far, but they've got a tall test just because UConn just has so many weapons and plays so well together. So that's kind of the breakdown of what we're looking at on the women's side of the brackets. Very excited to kind of see how the weekend plays out and kind of see where we are when things shake out when next week rolls around. I anticipate the 4 number 1 seeds advancing. So South Carolina, Iowa, Texas, and USC. I can see them getting there. I can see UConn being one of the final 4 teams as well. So we'll see kind of where things land when the final 4 rolls around. But I think we're in for a very interesting and very exciting weekend of women's hoops. All right. Thank you very much for watching this morning. Make sure that you like and subscribe. Make sure that you are subscribed to the channel here at For Frequency's Sake. We want to make sure that you're catching all that information. You can follow me on Threads over there at Doogie448. You can also find me on Facebook. Other than that, thank you very much, and we will talk to you guys later.